Henry Jenkins was cheating on his wife, having not just one, but several affairs. Strictly speaking, this shouldn't have concerned me, as we were merely business partners who had jointly invested in a small company. Yet, I found myself unconsciously keeping tabs on his every move. Of course, I'm not exactly a saint either. The truth is, I've been in love with Rosie Andrews for quite some time now. And Rosie Andrews happens to be Henry Jenkins' wife. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. Henry Jenkins was off to another rendezvous with his new flame tonight, never one to hide such affairs. After work drinks at the local pub, and the scantily clad, curvaceous young woman was already practically glued to Henry's side. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the two of them were getting ready to leave. A colleague jokingly teased Henry, who shrugged it off, giving us all a knowing look. Before departing, he nodded at me, and I tilted my chin in response. As they disappeared from view, I loosened my tie. Still in my work suit, I felt like I could hardly breathe. Not long after they left, I took out my phone and sent a message to an unnamed number. Royal Kensington Hotel, room 1208. That was the information I'd accidentally glimpsed on the keycard that had fallen out of Henry's pocket. The person on the other end was Henry's wife, Rosie Andrews. I admit what I'm doing is a bit underhanded, but then again, I've never claimed to be a paragon of virtue. Henry's betrayal of his marriage makes him no saint either. I'm simply doing the right thing, saving a poor woman who's been kept in the dark. I found out about Henry's affair 2 years ago when we were introduced through a mutual friend and discussing a potential business partnership. He'd never mentioned being married, and I didn't pry into such matters. I just assumed he was a ladies' man, hence the constant stream of girlfriends. He certainly had the qualities to be popular, good-looking, decent physique. Definitely the type that attracts attention. But at a business dinner party, I noticed something was off when he hurriedly sent away the female companion he'd brought along. That was also the day I first met his wife, Rosie Andrews. When she burst through the door of the private dining room, I was sitting directly in her line of sight. A beautiful face, tinged with anger, suddenly appeared before me. Fair-skinned with delicate features, and a small beauty mark below her eye. Not a classically stunning beauty, but unexpectedly captivating. I was washing the dishes when I suddenly zoned out, causing the water to overflow onto the table. Fortunately, everyone's attention was on Henry Jenkins at that moment, so no one noticed my predicament. Henry seemed displeased. "Why did you come here all of a sudden?" "We're discussing work." Despite his words, he didn't completely dismiss her. Henry put his arm around her and introduced her with a smile. "Everyone, this is my wife, Rosie Andrews." I thought the expressions on her face were quite fascinating. Her initial anger, as if catching him in the act, turned to shock when she saw the group of people, and then to embarrassment. Everyone at the table immediately understood the situation and hurried to greet her, smoothing things over. She then took a seat. I could see how forced her smile was. She didn't talk much and sat through the meal as if on pins and needles. When she stood up to leave, I could sense her apparent relief. But then a new situation arose. As Rosie picked up Henry's coat, a compact mirror fell out, left behind by the woman who had just been sent away. Her face turned pale in an instant. She glared at Henry, waiting for an explanation. Henry, ever the clever one, acted as if he hadn't noticed. He said goodbye to everyone as usual and ushered his visibly upset wife out the door. Sure enough, I heard them arguing heatedly in the car park. In the end, Rosie ran away crying. Another colleague of mine went after her and pulled her into a car. Henry was waiting for a taxi, and since I was the only one who hadn't been drinking, he asked me to take her home. In the car, she cried the whole way without making a sound, just silently shedding tears. Her face showed a mix of hurt and stubbornness. The dim streetlights cast shadows on her face as she deliberately turned away, as if not wanting me to see. We didn't say much during that ride. After I safely dropped her off at home, I received a quiet, "Thank you." That was the extent of our interaction. Later, Henry behaved himself for a while, and I thought he might have turned over a new leaf. But it wasn't long before he was back to his old ways, out partying every night. I naturally assumed that the girl who had cried all the way home in my car that night had simply put up with it. However, 2 months ago, I unexpectedly learned that she had been trying to gather information about Henry's activities from the company's employees. What did she want to know? Why did she want to know it? Was she planning to make a scene? What good would that do her if things got out of hand? It might even lead to divorce. Divorce? Did she want a divorce? When those two words appeared in my mind, I felt a strange excitement. I managed to get Rosie's phone number and found her WhatsApp. Perhaps I'm waiting for fate to deliver a final blow. I can barely endure this anymore. This was her first status update. I stared at these words for a long time. I kept recalling her tear-stained face as she sat in my passenger seat that night. It's no different now, but when I scrolled up, I saw her profile picture. A wedding photo where she looked beautiful, her eyes full of love for Henry. I dismissed the crazy idea that had just formed in my mind. It's between the two of them. Couples fight and make up. Outsiders shouldn't interfere. No one knew about the strange thought I had briefly entertained. But a few days later, at the company's annual party, Henry brought Rosie along. It was the second time I saw her, after more than a year. She seemed to have lost a lot of weight, and her eyes held a dullness that was starkly different from before. She looked so unhappy. I had thought theirs was a business marriage, but I didn't know she would be in such pain. I felt an inexplicable guilt and didn't approach her to talk, even though Henry was the one at fault, not me. When I was having drinks with Henry Jenkins, I casually asked about what led to his marriage. With bleary eyes and a smug expression, he said, "I'm her first love. We've been together for 10 years. It wasn't easy, you know. She's a wonderful girl, absolutely adores me. And what about you?" I couldn't help but press further. Me? Of course I love her too. Why else would I keep indulging her all this time? He seemed to drift into fond memories. 10 years, with her heart and eyes full of only me. It's truly rare. We met on a snowy day just like this on Christmas Day. We made it official then, and years later we held our wedding on the same day. How romantic! A colleague beside us couldn't help but exclaim. But as I looked at Henry, I could no longer feign drunkenness. You were the first to act inhumanely, so don't blame me for what comes next. I began sending evidence of Henry's infidelity to Rosie Andrews, photos of him drinking with other women, bringing other women to social gatherings. But frustratingly, I received no response. Was it not enough? Henry had never been discreet about these things, but now I found myself wishing I had managed to capture more on camera. That night, I felt a bit regretful. The next morning, as if my intelligence had finally returned, I woke up with a clearer mind. Realizing my efforts alone were too limited, I decided to hire a private investigator to handle this task. On Christmas Day, Henry didn't return home. That night, I checked Rosie's WhatsApp again and noticed she had changed her background from their wedding photo. Well, why keep a reminder of a husband who doesn't even come home on their wedding anniversary? The professionals certainly proved efficient. I soon received new material. But before I could send it to her, I unexpectedly found Henry's hotel key card. Remembering her tears and the dimming light in her eyes, I didn't hesitate. I sent the message. When I arrived at work the next day, Henry was predictably absent. I felt a secret anticipation, knowing that certain events had already been set in motion. I even began to look forward to him storming in, furious, demanding answers from me. I had already prepared my response. "It's your own fault." But that moment never came. I checked Rosie's social media, but there was nothing, complete silence. The private investigator received a new assignment. After hearing my request, he looked at me with an expression that was hard to read. I knew that usually people hired them to catch cheating partners, but both times my target had been Henry. The investigator looked at me quizzically, then seemed to have an aha moment. "I understand, it's quite normal. I'll help you get to the bottom of this," he said, before taking the information I provided and leaving. From his expression, I knew I had been misunderstood. I soon learned of their current situation. As I had suspected, They were in the midst of a divorce. Rosie had gone to the Jenkins family home. In the photos, she was seen entering the mansion gates clutching a document folder, her expression resolute. The folder likely contained evidence of Henry's infidelity, most of which had come from me. A while later, Henry also appeared there, visibly panicked. I don't know exactly what was said that day, but the Jenkins are a prominent family, and they would likely want to prevent any of this from becoming public knowledge to protect their reputation. A month later, they went to the court to finalize their divorce. That day, the private investigator parked his car outside, providing me with a live update. Rosie didn't appear as devastated as I had imagined. In fact, she looked rather relieved. Henry, on the other hand, had a miserable expression, full of reluctance. He was probably forced to come by his parents, which isn't surprising. In families like theirs, while a son is important, the family's reputation is far more crucial. What I couldn't understand was Henry's reaction. He had brought this on himself by losing his wife through his own actions. What right did he have to cry? I was in high spirits and decided to treat myself to a day off. During Henry Jenkins' divorce proceedings, my workload had increased significantly. On top of that, I had to put effort into keeping tabs on their progress, which was quite exhausting. The private investigator's job was done. Continuing any further would have been disrespectful to her. When settling the final payment, I received a complimentary piece of information. Rosie Andrews was looking for a new place to live. As I was driving, I happened to spot Rosie standing at the entrance of the estate, carrying various bags and packages. I straightened my clothes and pulled up beside her. Rosie glanced at me and took a step back. Seeing that I didn't drive away, she suspiciously opened her phone, seemingly checking something on a ride-hailing app. I found it rather amusing. "No need to check. I'm not a part-time driver," I said, realizing her mistake. She looked a bit embarrassed and tucked a strand of wind-blown hair behind her ear. She didn't remember me, which made me a bit sad. The disappointment on my face wasn't entirely an act. "I'm Jake Williams, Henry Jenkins' colleague. Don't you remember me?" While Rosie was pondering, I took the opportunity to load her things into my car. She seemed alarmed. "Oh, you don't have to bother. I can wait for a cab." Afraid she might refuse, I had already arranged her belongings and opened the passenger door. Being the kind person she was, she couldn't bring herself to decline and got in the car. The last time I was this close to her was when I dropped her off here. Ironically, what was once the end point had now become our starting point. Rosie gave me the address of her new place, and we drove in silence after that. I got the feeling she still hadn't remembered who I was. It didn't matter though. Just being in this private space with Rosie was enough to make me feel elated. Regrettably, the journey was short, and we arrived in no time. I inwardly grumbled about why she had to choose a place so close, but I dutifully got out to help her with her things. "Thank you so much for today. I must treat you to dinner sometime to show my appreciation," she said with a smile, offering the polite pleasantries typical among adults. "That would be lovely. Why don't we exchange contact details? I'll get in touch when I'm free," I replied with a grin, pulling up my WhatsApp QR code. I added her on WhatsApp just like that. The next day at work, Henry Jenkins, whom I hadn't seen in a while, came to the office. He still had that dejected look from when he got divorced. I didn't offer any consolation, as I, like everyone else, shouldn't have known about his marital troubles at this point. However, after a few days of looking gloomy, he suddenly perked up. He even shared his joy with me. "I'm going to make up with my wife tonight. She's finally agreed to talk to me." The dark cloud over his face disappeared, only to transfer onto mine. Back in my office, I sent my first message to Rosie Andrews after adding her as a contact. "Hello. When are you going to treat me to dinner?" "Oh, anytime, really. When are you free?" I reckon she might find me a bit forward, but I couldn't care less at this point. "I'm free tonight. How about today?" While Henry Jenkins still couldn't meet Rosie Andrews that day, she and I were sitting face to face in a restaurant. Her phone, placed on the table, lit up. She declined the call. It lit up again, and I saw Henry's name on the screen. Rosie sighed, turned off the screen, and put it on silent. Then she looked up as if she had something to say to me. I waited quietly for her to speak. Actually, Henry and I are already divorced. I don't know if you're helping me for his sake or if you need something from him, but I can't be of much help either way. She said all this quickly, then let out a breath. So that's what Rosie thought. It seemed necessary to lay my cards on the table. I know. It's precisely because you're divorced that I came to find you. What? This time it was her turn to be surprised. She took a sip of red wine to hide her nervousness. What do you mean? I put down my knife and fork and sat up straight. I like you. You might think it's a bit sudden, but it's true. I thought I would be calm, but as I said those words, I could feel the back of my ears getting hot. A sudden, unfamiliar sense of shyness made me lower my head. Could you not get back together with Henry? He doesn't deserve you. The dinner ended quickly. When I drove her home, she almost fled in panic. I didn't rush to get back in the car. I found that I liked being with her more than I had imagined. Leaning against the car, I composed a long WhatsApp message. My height, weight, monthly income, family situation, everything I could think of, I wrote it all out. When I finished editing and hit send, the green text almost filled the entire screen. Only then did I realize I might have written too much. I looked up, feeling oddly like she was watching me. Suddenly, the curtain was drawn. Whether it was abrupt or offensive, I was afraid that if I didn't say it now, it would be too late. From a young age, I was taught that if you like something, you should strive for it with all your might, regardless of the means. I've always followed this principle well in my career, but my love life had always been uneventful. Meeting Rosie was the first time I felt such a strong desire to get close to someone. When she was still married, I barely spoke a word to her. Now that she's divorced, there's no need to keep my distance anymore. Rosie didn't reply to that message for a long time, and I didn't push. After all, she had just ended a marriage, so it was normal for her not to accept me. As long as she didn't go see Henry, that was enough. As for the rest, Henry would sabotage himself. After a period of depression, during which he was drunk every day, he opened up to me about the divorce. Perhaps because I had inquired about his relationship status a few times, he mistakenly thought we were close enough for him to share these things. He talked about how he regretted it, how he had lost the woman he loved most. When drunk, he would even cry, putting his arm around my shoulder and sobbing, "Rosie has blocked my number. She doesn't want me anymore." Henry's breath reeked of alcohol. I could only pretend to casually dodge his face, offering insincere comfort. "It's all right, look ahead. There are plenty of people who would like you." He heard me, despite still shouting that he didn't want anyone else but her. However, a few days later, I saw that woman who had been involved with Henry Jenkins before. I was satisfied with his compliance. Everything was developing in the direction I wanted. During this period, I moved house, relocating to the flat opposite Rosie Andrews. This wasn't because I'm obsessive, but because she truly never went out. On weekends, my car would be parked downstairs all day, and I wouldn't see her leave once. I was worried something might happen to her, and my concerns proved justified. This person, who appeared normal on the surface, began drinking heavily at midnight. I could understand her sadness. After all, he was the man she had loved throughout her youth. 10 years is a significant part of anyone's life, and parting in such an undignified manner, how could she not be heartbroken? I could hear her sobbing uncontrollably. My hand, poised to knock on her door, froze in mid-air. I began to feel regret. Was what I did wrong? Was it too cruel to make her witness that scene with her own eyes? So, the next day, I knocked on her door. Her eyes were very swollen, radiating innocence. She was surprised to see me there. I put on a harmless expression. "Hello, I'm your new neighbor. I've made breakfast. Would you like to join me?" She refused, but her refusal was ineffective. I heard her stomach make a sound completely different from her words. She looked a bit embarrassed, and a minute later, she was sitting at my dining table. Rosie Andrews is an easygoing person, I chuckled to myself. But then I thought, It's precisely because of this that she was mistreated by a man like Henry Jenkins for so long. Thinking about this, I couldn't laugh anymore. She looked lovely while eating. I thought she was prettier without makeup. I had prepared breakfast early, knowing she had been drinking last night. Something warm in the morning would make her feel better. Rosie seemed less reserved with me today, perhaps because the effects of alcohol hadn't fully worn off. As she was eating, she suddenly looked up and called my name. I responded, and she gave me a somewhat scrutinizing look. "You said you like me?" I quickly sat up straight, answering seriously, "Yes." "Those photos, you sent them to me?" "Yes." I remained frank. "Why did you do that?" "He's a scoundrel. You shouldn't be kept in the dark. You deserve better. Isn't what you did a bit disloyal?" I picked up her bowl and added a spoonful of soup. "To get what I want, I can be the bad guy. Aren't you afraid Henry Jenkins will find out?" I handed her the bowl of soup and told her the truth. "If I were afraid, I wouldn't have used my own number. I've been waiting for you to call me, so I could shamelessly tell you his true nature, that the man you chose is a scoundrel, and persuade you to leave him." I lowered my eyes after speaking. "I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid of hurting you. I thought I'd wait for you to discover it naturally, but I waited too long. That day when I found out you were bribing Henry Jenkins's secretary, I was happy. I knew you wanted to know the truth and were waiting for a chance to end it. So whatever you wanted to know, I gave it to you." After hearing this, Rosie smiled bitterly. "Thank you for everything, including this meal, but I really don't have any plans to start a new relationship right now." I wasn't discouraged at all. "I understand. My feelings won't be a burden to you. I just want to be closer to you. I just want you to see me." Our second meal together was quite satisfactory. As I cleared the dishes, I was mentally summarizing the situation. She silently accepted my presence, and I gradually began to enter her life. Her nights of drinking alone became less frequent, though she still wasn't fond of going out. Checking on her daily had become a part of my routine, and it filled me with a sense of purpose. My intuition was right, I did like her, and the more I got to know her, the more I cared for her. Before summer arrived, I persuaded her to go to the shopping center with me. She didn't seem to have many friends and never mentioned her family, so I accompanied her to buy summer clothes. Rosie tried on a dress that looked lovely on her. The shop assistant complimented her, saying, "Your wife has a great figure. She's perfect for dresses." I couldn't help but smile at being referred to as her husband, but then I noticed Rosie's face turn pale for a moment. Couldn't have been just because of that comment. I followed her gaze and saw the cause of the tension. Henry Jenkins. He was looking in our direction, his expression grim. Beside him stood the woman from the incriminating photos. It seemed their affair was the real deal if they were still together after all this time. "Jake!" Henry called out to me, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "What a coincidence," I replied. "Indeed. When did you and my ex-wife become so close?" Henry narrowed his eyes at me. I remained silent, not daring to stake any claim. I had no right to do so. It was Rosie who spoke up coldly. "As you said, I'm your ex-wife. Who I spend time with is no longer your concern." Hearing her speak, Henry's expression changed several times. "You said you'd give me a chance to win you back, and then you disappeared. I've been looking for you for ages." "Don't be ridiculous," Rosie scoffed. "Look at the woman beside you before you try to act all devoted to me." Henry suddenly stepped forward, and I instinctively moved to shield Rosie. His gaze grew even more displeased, his anger visibly rising. I prepared myself for a potential fight, but then I felt a hand gently grasp mine from behind. It sent a jolt through my entire body, leaving me tingling. "Jake!" Henry practically spat my name through gritted teeth. I squeezed Rosie's hand and looked Henry straight in the eye. "Yes, I've liked your wife for a long time. I'm pursuing her now. Is there a problem?" I had nothing to feel guilty about. I was only concerned about putting Rosie in an awkward position. Henry tried to lunge forward but was held back by the woman beside him. The woman, who had been silent until now, let out a derisive snort at Rosie. I was about to retort when I heard Rosie's voice. She sneered, "Your new girlfriend is quite pretty. She looks completely different from that disheveled state when she was caught in bed with you." "You!" The woman's eyes widened in anger, but she couldn't find the words to argue back. Henry pulled her behind him, his voice filled with barely contained fury. "Don't speak so harshly. What about you? Are you so innocent? I wondered where you got all that evidence from. Turns out you've been involved with my mate for a while. Your goal was divorce all along. He was quite good at mudslinging." I couldn't help but laugh. "You've got some nerve. This isn't your only indiscretion, is it? You weren't exactly idle before I even knew you." I looked at him as if he were a fool. "And since when were we mates?" Then I turned my gaze to the woman beside Henry. "By the way, I recall you had more than one lover while you were still married." After delivering this loaded statement, I took Rosie's hand and strode away. Slap! A sharp sound echoed from behind us. "You said you divorced for me. You liar!" I heard the woman crying loudly. Henry was trying to defend himself, drawing the attention of everyone around. I led Rosie Andrews away without looking back, all the way until we got into the car. She let go of my hand, and I rubbed my palm a few times before driving us home. Once we arrived, the first thing she said was an apology to me. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this mess," Rosie said. "Will it affect your work?" she added, belatedly worried. I looked at her earnestly and said, "You don't need to apologize to me. It was all my own doing." What he said was indeed what I wanted. "I just didn't want you to feel hurt." She fell silent again, so I lightened my tone to tease her. "I never knew you had such a strong attack mode. How did I miss that before?" She became embarrassed. "Of course I do." Then she tilted her head back awkwardly, sounding a bit proud. I couldn't help but laugh, and so did she. We both laughed for quite a while for no apparent reason. As I looked at her, Rosie was staring at my face. I'm not sure who initiated it, or maybe we both did. The distance between us grew smaller. I could see Rosie's eyelashes trembling slightly. I gazed intently into her beautiful eyes, then moved down to her lips. My eyes traced the path from her eyes to her red lips several times. I couldn't help but ask hoarsely, "May I kiss you?" She responded by wrapping her arms around my neck. Finally given permission, I leaned in and kissed her. "Does this mean we're official now?" I murmured uncertainly as I held her. She was too tired to respond and turned away to sleep. But I was too excited to sleep, having finally won the woman I'd been dreaming of for so long. I propped myself up on my elbow and gazed at her adoringly, 100 thoughts racing through my mind. I marveled at how beautiful she was and wondered why I hadn't approached her sooner. Would it scare her if I proposed tomorrow? How many children should we have? No, wait. She was with Henry Jenkins for so many years and never had children. Maybe she doesn't like kids? That's fine too. We'd be happy just the two of us. Should I call her something different? Rosie seems too formal, as others call her that too. I'll call her Rosie Love. It's affectionate and uniquely mine. I nodded, satisfied, and kissed her forehead, whispering, "Good night, Rosie Love." Rosie Andrews' perspective. I suspected my husband was having an affair, but I had no proof. The suspicions were driving me mad, tormenting me with doubts about my loved one's fidelity. Every little clue put me on high alert, but he always managed to talk his way out of it with smooth words. This cycle repeated until I was on the verge of a breakdown. Even my family advised me not to worry about these normal social interactions for men. I wavered between two thoughts: turning a blind eye and continuing our life together, or finding evidence and leaving him for good. Finally, someone broke my impasse. I received evidence of my husband's infidelity. Someone was helping me catch him in the act. I thought it was Henry's secretary whom I had bribed, but I didn't reply, fearing I might alert them if I responded hastily. On our wedding anniversary, unlike the usual photos and videos, I received a message with a hotel name and room number. My heart was pounding as I rushed there. My hands were shaking as I pushed open the door. I saw the man I had loved for 10 years naked in bed with another woman. I took photos of the scene. I didn't listen to Henry's panicked explanations. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. I quickly left the hotel and, armed with this video and the previously received photos, I went to his parents' house. I knew Henry wouldn't agree to a divorce, and my family, due to business ties with his, would only advise me to stay quiet. I could only show these photos and videos to his parents, threatening to expose everything if he didn't divorce me. They compromised, and although I said I didn't want anything, they still gave me some compensation, perhaps as hush money. Henry, for some reason, suddenly became deeply affectionate, refusing to go through with the paperwork. I deceived him, saying only if we completely separated would he have a chance to win me back. He believed it. The day I got the divorce certificate, I felt no pain, only relief. I had been emotionally drained in this dysfunctional relationship for too long. I was finally free. To avoid Henry's persistence, I moved house. It was then that I met Jake. He kindly offered to help me move in, and then, surprisingly, confessed his feelings for me. I was so shocked my eyes nearly popped out. Although I hadn't planned on staying single after my divorce, this second chance at love came unexpectedly fast. Back at home, I received his interrupted self-introduction message and belatedly realized that he might be the one who had been sending me updates about Henry's activities. I checked my WhatsApp and copied the number, and sure enough, it matched the person in my chat. He was quite bold, not even using a separate account for this. I read the information he sent. He had excellent credentials and was even 2 years younger than me. Indeed, a suitable boyfriend candidate. But I wasn't in the mood for a relationship. At midnight, the pain would still resurface, and I still felt like the worst woman in the world to have been treated that way. I could only numb myself with alcohol. To my surprise, Jake moved in as my neighbor across the hall. I accepted his presence. Everything about him was so open and sincere. I was always amazed by the way he looked at me. Perhaps I was worthy of such intense love? Did that mean I wasn't so bad after all? He accompanied me through my darkest times, healing my insecurities. 6 months after my divorce, Jake and I started dating. That day, when my mom called, I was lying on Jake's lap watching a film. "Rosie, dear, you haven't been home in ages. Come visit us," she said. I know," I replied. "Where are you living now?" "Mum would like to come see you when she's free." "No need, Mum. I'll come home this weekend." I hung up after these few words. Jake seemed to have something to say but hesitated. "What is it?" "Just ask if you want to know something," I said, adjusting to a more comfortable position. "You don't seem to like going home. May I ask why?" he inquired. "There's no particular reason. I grew up with my grandparents and only moved back with my parents in secondary school. They love me, but they love their son more. It's that simple. Perhaps because of this, I desperately wanted a home of my own. That's why I endured so much in that marriage. I was afraid of being alone." I didn't say these words aloud. Jake just gently patted my arm without saying anything. After a while, I heard him say, "Rosie, I'll give you a home." My heart pounded like a drum, but I pretended to be asleep with my eyes half closed. Couldn't believe it. He didn't know how much courage this relationship had cost me. How many times I had imagined the worst outcomes before carefully taking this step. As for more, I dared not think. He was so outstanding. Would he really love me forever? After we officially got together, Jake became unusually clingy. He always wanted to take me to gatherings without Henry Jenkins, but I really disliked such occasions and refused 9 times out of 10. Once, Jake had been drinking at a party and called me to pick him up, whining, "You never accompany me. Can you at least come and take me home?" How could I refuse? When I arrived and went to look for him in the private room, he wasn't there. As I turned to search the corridor, I unexpectedly heard Henry Jenkins' voice around the corner. "Do you think Rosie really likes you? She's just using you to get back at me. Everyone knows about our relationship. Jake, you're just a tool she's using for revenge." Henry seemed drunk and was speaking loudly. I silently cursed at how this man kept haunting us, and I was very concerned about Jake's reaction to these words. "Even if that's true, what of it?" "I'm willing," came Jake's voice, neither servile nor overbearing. I was greatly shocked by this sentence. How could someone like Jake be willing to be so humble for my sake? I ran back to the car, pretending I had just arrived. He was very happy to see me and said nothing, just staring at me from the passenger seat the whole way home. Not long after, he told me he had sorted things out with Henry Jenkins. Even the business separation wasn't as complicated as I had imagined. I suddenly understood, but my parents couldn't accept it. He didn't change after 1 year, nor after 2. In the 3rd year, we met each other's parents. In the 5th year, we got married. Even though we were already like an old married couple, he was still as passionate as when we first got together, even clingier. On our wedding night, in our new room decorated with just married signs, I teased him. "You once said I deserved a better man. Mr. Williams, do you think I found him now?" He nibbled on my earlobe, punishing me for my lack of focus. By the time we finished, it was already dawn. He lay on his side, embracing me, our faces close. "I don't know if I count as a better choice, but Rosie, I'm willing to become the best one for you."